Alright, so here's the deal. Today, we're diving into one of the deepest, most mind-bending questions we've probably all thought about at some point. Are you just your body? Or are you something more? What if I told you that the answer to that question could completely change the way you think about yourself, the people around you, and even life itself? This isn't just about philosophy, it's about you. It's about what makes you. You. Let's start with this. When you look in the mirror, who do you think is staring back? Is it just a body, flesh and bones, or is it something deeper, a soul? And if you do have a soul, is it separate from the person you are? Or are you, at your core, just that soul? For centuries, people have debated this. It's not just philosophers. Scientists, religious leaders, and even everyday people like us have wrestled with this question. And what's crazy? There's still no final answer. But we're going to break this down step by step, and by the end of this video, you might just have a completely new perspective. So let's get into it. Here's the first big idea. Are you a combination of a body and a soul, or is the soul the real you? Imagine this for a second. Most of us think of ourselves as a mix of physical and spiritual parts. My body is the thing you see, the thing that interacts with the world, but my soul, that's the part of me that feels immortal, the part of me that dreams, thinks, feels love, and wrestles with meaning. But here's the twist. What if the person you think you are, the one with a name, a face, a personality, isn't actually you at all? What if you are just the soul and the body is just a tool you're using to live in the physical world? That's one view, often called substance dualism. This belief says you're not two things working together, you're actually just one thing, a soul. The body is like a car, and the soul is the driver. When the car breaks down, does the driver stop existing? Nope. The soul just moves on. Okay, but here's where it gets tricky. Some people argue the opposite, that you're a combination, both body and soul, inseparable. They say that without your body, you wouldn't be able to experience life in the way you do now. Your body isn't just a car or a shell, it's part of what makes you. You.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Let me blow your mind for a second. Think about this. When you were a baby, you had a completely different body. You didn't have the same face, the same hands, or even the same brain cells, but you were still you. And now, as an adult, your body has changed again. So if every part of your body can change, but you still feel like the same person, doesn't that mean the real you is something deeper than just your physical body? But wait, let's not jump to conclusions. What if the soul isn't something separate? What if the soul and the body are so connected that they can't exist without each other? Think about it this way. Have you ever noticed how your physical state can affect your emotions and thoughts? When you're sick, tired, or in pain, doesn't it feel like your entire being is affected, not just your body? Would that happen if the soul was completely independent? Here's a deep question for you. If you lost your body, let's say, hypothetically, your consciousness lived on after your physical body was gone, would you still feel like yourself? Or would you feel like something incomplete? Okay, let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about what this means for how we see the world. If you believe you're just a body, then all your thoughts, feelings, and experiences are just the result of neurons firing in your brain. Love, fear, hope, they're all just chemicals. But if you believe you're a soul, then your experiences are more than just physical reactions. They're evidence of something eternal, something that can't be measured or explained by science alone. And here's where it gets really interesting. If you believe you're a soul, then what happens when your body dies? Does the soul move on? Does it go somewhere else? Or does it just stop? Different cultures and religions have wildly different answers to this. Some say the soul goes to heaven or reincarnates into a new body. Others say the soul merges with a greater universal consciousness, like a drop of water returning to the ocean. And then there are those who believe the soul simply ceases to exist, like a flame going out. But let me ask you this: if you are a soul, and if that soul is eternal, then what's the purpose of life in a body? Are we here to learn something? To grow? To experience physical reality in a way a soul alone can't? And if that's true, then what are we supposed to take with us when we leave this life? Here's something wild to think about. In some ancient traditions, they believe that our souls choose to come into a body for a specific reason. That means your life, your challenges, your relationships, even your body might not be random. What if every experience you have is part of a bigger plan, something your soul wanted to experience or learn? But now, I want to throw a curveball. What if there's no soul at all? What if everything we think of as the soul is just a product of the brain? Neuroscientists have found that specific parts of the brain control things like memory, emotions, and personality. When those parts are damaged, a person's entire sense of self can change. Does that mean the soul is just an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of our existence? Let's take it even further. If there's no soul, and if we're just physical beings, then does that make life less meaningful or more? If this life is all there is, does that mean we should make the most of every moment, because there's nothing waiting for us after we die? Or does it mean that nothing really matters, because everything we do will eventually be forgotten? I know this is heavy stuff, but these questions matter because they force us to think about how we live our lives. If you believe you're a soul, you might focus more on spiritual growth, relationships, and leaving a legacy. If you believe you're just a body, you might focus more on enjoying the present moment and making the most of your time on earth. So let me leave you with this question: who are you, really? Are you the person others see? The body you live in? The thoughts in your head? Or are you something deeper, something eternal that can't be seen or touched? This is just the beginning. In the next part, we're going to explore what some of the greatest minds in history, philosophers, scientists, and spiritual leaders have said about this question. And trust me, their answers will blow your mind. All right, let's pick up where we left off. If you're still here, it means you're ready to go even deeper into this question. Are persons and souls the same thing? Last time we explored the idea of whether we're just bodies, just souls, or some combination of the two. But now we're going to dig into what some of the greatest thinkers in history have said about this, and get ready, because this is where things get wild. Let's start with one of the oldest perspectives, the ancient Greeks. Plato, one of the most famous philosophers of all time, believed that the soul was the real you. He thought the body was kind of like a prison, and that when we die, our souls are released. You know what's crazy? He believed that before we were born, our souls existed in a perfect spiritual world. But when we were born, we forgot everything, and now life is about remembering who we truly are. Think about that for a second. If Plato's right, then everything you're experiencing right now, your thoughts, your emotions, even your struggles, might just be the soul trying to wake up and remember where it came from. But let me ask you this: if the soul is separate from the body, then why do we feel so connected to our physical experiences? Why does pain feel so real? Why do we cry, laugh, or feel joy? On the other hand, Aristotle, Plato's student, had a different view. He thought the soul and the body were inseparable, like two sides of the same coin. For Aristotle, the soul wasn't a separate thing floating around inside you. Instead, it was what gave your body life and purpose. He believed that when the body dies, the soul dies too. So for Aristotle, there's no you without your physical body. Now, let's fast forward a bit to the ideas of modern science. Today, a lot of scientists lean toward the idea that we're just physical beings, bodies with brains that create the illusion of a soul. They argue that everything we think of as us, our thoughts, memories, emotions, is just the result of neurons firing in our brain. And here's where it gets crazy. They've done experiments that show how specific parts of the brain control specific parts of our personality. Damage one part of the brain, and a person might lose their ability to remember who they are. Does that mean the soul is just a metaphor? A way for us to make sense of things we don't fully understand? But here's the thing. Even scientists can't fully explain consciousness, our sense of being alive, aware, and connected to the world. Some call it the hard problem of consciousness because no matter how much we study the brain, we still don't know why we feel like someone inside our heads. And you know what? This is where science and philosophy collide. Let's talk about René Descartes, the philosopher who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Descartes believed that the mind or soul and the body were two completely different things. For him, the soul was the thing that thinks, feels, and makes choices, while the body was just a physical machine. But here's the twist. Descartes also believed that the soul and the body are deeply connected. He thought the soul used the body to experience the world, but that the soul itself was eternal. Here's a question for you. If the soul is eternal, then what happens to it after we die? If Descartes is right, and the soul is separate from the body, then does that mean it goes somewhere else? Or does it just exist somewhere we can't see? Now, let's bring in some wisdom from different cultures and religions. In Hinduism, they believe in something called the Atman, which is like the soul or the true self. But here's the twist. They believe the Atman is actually part of something much bigger and infinite, universal spirit called Brahman. In other words, your soul isn't just yours, it's connected to everything and everyone. And the goal of life: to realize that connection and break free from the cycle of birth and death. But let's compare that to Christianity, which teaches that the soul is created by God and is completely unique to each person. Here's what's fascinating. Some Christian thinkers believe that the soul and the body will eventually come back together. They say that when the world ends, our souls will be reunited with perfected versions of our bodies. So for them, you're not just a soul, you're a soul and a body forever. And then there's Buddhism, which flips the whole idea of the soul on its head. Buddhists believe there's no permanent self or soul at all. Instead, they say what we think of as me is just a collection of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that are constantly changing. It's like a river. It looks like one thing from the outside, but inside it's always moving, always flowing. Let me ask you this: if there's no permanent soul, does that mean you don't really exist? Or does it mean that you are bigger than just one thing, one identity? Now, here's where things get really mind-blowing. Some modern thinkers believe that the soul isn't something you have, it's something you become. They argue that the soul isn't a fixed thing, but a process. It's something you shape and grow through your choices, relationships, and experiences. Think about it. Every decision you make, every relationship you build, every challenge you face, could it all be shaping your soul, making it into something more? If that's true, then maybe the soul isn't something you're born with. Maybe it's something you create. But let's not forget the practical side of this conversation. Whether you believe in the soul or not, these questions force us to think about how we live our lives. If you believe in a soul, what are you doing to take care of it? Are you feeding it with love, kindness, and purpose? Or are you ignoring it, letting it wither behind the distractions of daily life? And if you don't believe in a soul, does that mean life is any less meaningful? Or does it mean that every moment, every connection, every experience is even more important because this is all we have? Here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to really think about what you believe. Are you a soul? A body? Both? Neither? And how does that belief shape the way you live? In the next part, we're going to get even deeper. We'll explore what this question means for how we see others, how we handle life's biggest challenges, and how we find purpose. Because here's the thing, whether you believe in the soul or not, the way you answer this question will shape everything: how you treat others, how you face death, and how you live each day. All right, here's where we take everything we've talked about so far and push it to the edge. If you're still with me, it means you're ready for the big questions, the ones that don't just make you think, but shake you to your core. We've explored whether we're bodies, souls, or both. We've looked at what history, science, and philosophy have to say. But now, let's ask the most important question: what does this mean for how you live your life? Let's start with this. If you are a soul, or if your soul is the real you, then what should your life look like? Think about it. If the soul is eternal, if it exists beyond this physical life, then what you do here and now has consequences that go far beyond the immediate. Every choice you make, every relationship you nurture, every act of kindness or cruelty, it might all leave a mark on your soul. Here's a question: if your soul is eternal, what kind of legacy are you leaving behind, not in the physical world, but in the spiritual one? Some people believe that we're here for a reason, that our souls are on a journey, learning and growing through the experiences we have in this life. If that's true, then maybe the struggles you face aren't just random. Maybe they're opportunities for your soul to grow stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Let me give you an example. Think about the hardest thing you've ever been through. Maybe it was losing someone you loved, facing failure, or dealing with pain that felt unbearable. In that moment, it probably felt like everything was falling apart. But now, looking back, can you see how it changed you? Can you see how it shaped the person you are today? If you believe in the soul, then maybe those moments are where your soul is forged. Like a blade being tempered in fire, those challenges might be what make your soul stronger, sharper, more resilient. And if that's true, then every experience, good or bad, might have a purpose. But what if you don't believe in the soul? What if you think we're just bodies living in a physical world with no eternal you waiting on the other side? Does that make life less meaningful? Or does it make it even more precious? Here's the thing: if this life is all we have, then every moment matters. Every connection, every laugh, every tear, it's all part of the one finite story that is your life. And if that's true, then the purpose of life isn't about preparing for what comes next. It's about being fully present, fully alive in the here and now. But let's not stop there. Let's flip the question. If you don't believe in the soul, then what does it mean to be you? Are you just your body, your brain, your memories? And if those things can change, if your body ages, if your brain forgets, if your memories fade, then what holds you together? Here's a crazy idea. Maybe you aren't a fixed thing at all. Maybe you're not a soul, or a body, or even a mind. Maybe you're a process, a story that's constantly being written, moment by moment. And if that's true, then the question isn't what are you? It's who are you becoming? Let's bring this back to how we see others. If you believe in the soul, then every person you meet isn't just a body, they're a soul, just like you. Think about that for a second. The person you're angry at? The person you love? The person you barely notice as they walk past you on the street? If they're a soul, then they're just as eternal, just as valuable as you are. And if you don't believe in the soul, then every person you meet is still a miracle. Think about it. Out of all the chaos in the universe, out of billions of years of evolution, here they are. A unique, unrepeatable life, just like you. Here's another deep question. How would your life change if you started seeing every person not as a body or a personality, but as something deeper, as something sacred? Now, let's talk about death. Yeah, I know it's not exactly a fun topic, but if we're asking what it means to be alive, we have to talk about what it means to die. If you believe in the soul, then death isn't the end. It's a transition, a doorway to whatever comes next. But here's the thing, even if you believe that, death still matters. Why? Because this life, this body, this experience, you only get it once. The soul might live on, but this version of you in this world is temporary. And if you don't believe in the soul, then death is the end. But here's the paradox: knowing that life is temporary doesn't make it less meaningful. It makes it more. It's like a sunset, beautiful because it doesn't last forever. So here's the big question: how do you live knowing that one day it will all end? Some people live in fear of death, clinging to life and trying to avoid the inevitable. Others accept it, using the knowledge of their mortality to live more fully, more boldly. And then there are those who see death not as an ending, but as a reminder to love deeply, to forgive quickly, and to leave the world a little better than they found it. So let me ask you, how do you want to live? Here's the takeaway: whether you believe in the soul or not, the way you answer these questions will shape everything: how you treat others, how you face challenges, and how you find meaning. If you believe in the soul, then every moment is an opportunity to grow, to learn, to leave a mark on something eternal. And if you don't, then every moment is still an opportunity to live fully, to love deeply, and to make this one life count. So, who are you? Are you just a body? Are you a soul? Are you something else entirely? And more importantly, how are you going to live? If this video made you think, if it challenged you, if it opened your eyes even just a little, then here's what I want you to do: share it. Share it with someone you care about, someone you think would appreciate this conversation. Because at the end of the day, these aren't just big, abstract questions. They're the questions that define our lives. And remember, whether you're a body, a soul, or something in between, you're here right now. So make it count.